Hello all, it's Łukasz Woźniak, designer of the Witcher Old World, and I am so happy to be able to connect with you that way and share more details about 4 expansions to the game. We're going to talk about the Wild Hunt, which is part of the 3 stretch goals that each backer gets, and also 3 add-on expansions, Mages, Skellige, and the Legendary Hunt. My goal for today is to give you a detailed explanation of the rules, gameplay, as well as show you some graphic design and visual components. But this video shouldn't be treated as a full rules explanations, but I want to get into some detail, so probably you need to already be familiar with the Witcher Old World gameplay to get the most of this video. So let's begin with the Wild Hunt. This is an expansion that brings a lot of new components and new rules, both for cooperative and solo experience. First, each player chooses the Witcher or Mage they would like to play as. The game is set up with some changes specific to that expansion. Wild Hunt is prepared. Player choose one of 4 different Wild Hunt members as the main enemy of the game. The card for the Wild Hunt is placed near the board and the miniature is placed on the map and will travel throughout the continent until players meet him in the final fight. Wild Hunt has 4 special combat cards and a number of shield tokens that depends on the number of players and the difficulty level chosen. Players will try to decrease his shields before the final fight to have a better chance of defeating the enemy. 6 Hound miniatures with cards and special tokens are placed near the game board as well. Standard exploration and event cards are replaced by 70 special ones used only in these expansions. Those cards use special tokens to track some quests as well. Players take an appropriate round tracking board and may begin the game. Gameplay wise, a lot of things change with that expansion. Players work together and have a common purpose. They will win or lose together. So in phase 1 of the player turn, players take their turns in any order they choose. Also, they may do it at the same time. They may discuss their options. They may meet in one location to learn the skill of another Witcher, exchange money, potions. They also decide when they want to fight the hounds or divide the monsters and quests among themselves. So there's need for a lot of cooperation because they need to prepare their Witchers or Mages for the final fight, get rid of the monsters, and try to decrease Wild Hunt's shields. How? By attacking hounds and resolving some quests. Once all players enter phase 1, they may fight monsters and claim level 5 ability trophies. Players on the same location may help each other during monster fights by discarding cards from their hand. For each card discarded, the fighting player draws 1 card and the monster loses 1 life point. Then they read 1 expansion card collectively. It may require some group decision making, or it may begin a quest that will require 1 or more players to visit a certain location in the future turns. Those exploration cards all revolve around the Wild Hunt attack theme. It adds a big thematic flavor and builds a unique set of events that happen during the game. In phase 3, all players get a new card, and they do it one by one. So they also need to cooperate and discuss their options. There's also a new 4th phase when the Wild Hunt moves and the new monsters and or hounds appear. And if the 4th monster would appear, players would lose. So they need to keep that in mind. The Wild Hunt on the map blocks the location action, makes the nearby monsters stronger, and affects some quests. He builds his power before he finally attacks, and players try to fight off the obstacles and prepare for that final battle. If the players manage to survive until the 8th round, the final fight begins, and all players take part in it, taking their fight turns 1 by 1. And the Wild Hunt is protected by the shields, a large life pool, and special ability, and a number of special combat cards. So it's always unique every time you play with a different enemy. Each time the Wild Hunt attacks, all players are affected. And if all players are knocked out, they lose the game. If they manage to kill the Wild Hunt and at least one player is still standing, collectively they win. That expansion will work perfectly for people that enjoy cooperative play or a solitaire game mode. It has 4 different enemies, plenty of different exploration and event cards, 4 difficulty levels. That's just enormous variability, replayability right here. Now let's talk about mages. That expansion has a huge set of components and it can be combined with all gameplay modes and expansions. First and foremost, there are 5 full sets of player components. Each set contains 1 player board, 5 wooden cubes, 1 wooden energy marker, 1 mage miniature with a color base, 1 scoring token, 1 plastic scoring token, 1 school token, 1 specialty token, 10 starting action cards. That expansion also contains a game board extension and a full set of 90 mage action cards. Mage action cards have a similar design, but it is a deck of completely new cards. They represent 5 different spell types: earth, water, fire, wind, and mind. And those are different visually and mechanically. I'll get to that in a moment. First of all, you can decide to use only mages or use mages and witchers. Mages have the same goal of the game, which is collecting trophies. When you combine 2 different types of playable characters, there are 2 separate action card pools that affect each other. So you have 5 witchers in the standard game, you get 2 more witchers in the stretch goals, so once you add mages, you have 12 different playable characters to choose from. Even though mages can be used as freely as that, there are quite a few notable differences when you play as a mage. In general, mages are different but balanced with other characters with a new type of a gameplay. From my own perspective, after having played the game countless times, I like to play as a mage every other time I sit down to the game. I have also seen that players learn the game or the expansion easier with witchers, but take full advantage of the possibility that mages have once they get more experience. So the first big difference between mages and witchers is wisdom and energy. Each mage has combat and alchemy abilities. Each also has a unique specialty. But mages do not train defense, but wisdom. Mages also do not have a built-in defense, but they spend and gain energy. Many of the mage action cards can be enhanced by spending energy. For example, this 0-cost red card inflicts 1 damage and has 2 combo extensions. One of them is the same color as the card itself. That happens quite a lot in the mage action deck, which is something new. Also, if you decide to spend 1 energy while resolving the combo, you inflict 1 additional damage. This purple card inflicts 1 wound and increases the card draw by 1. It also has 4 different combo extensions. Additionally, you may spend 2 energy to take back any chosen card from your discard pile. It is a very powerful card when you play it at the right time. Obviously, there are cards that increase your energy during the fight, so you need to manage the energy you have. So knowing your deck and timing is key. And remember that you resolve cards in your combo from left to right, so even using them in right order may be crucial, as 1 card may give you energy that another one will use. While you play as a mage, you should be more diligent while building your deck and are faced with new decisions during the fights. Besides that, there are new symbols that can be found on the mage action cards, making the experience of playing as a mage more unique. Most notably, mages have protection that has some similarities to shields. Mages get protection only for 1 fight turn, so if you get a 2 protection, for example, the next enemy attack will have its damage decreased by 2, but If the enemy deals 1 or less damage, unused protection is lost. It also requires more strategical approach and may have a different effect while fighting another player and fighting a monster. So the whole expansion allows for a very unique player experience while playing The Witcher Old World standalone or with other expansions, either solo, competitive or cooperate against the Wild Hunt. The next expansion I would like to take a look at is the Legendary Hunt. That expansion adds 7 legendary monsters with truly epic miniatures, each accompanied by a large card. It also contains 20 special fight cards, 12 movement cards, and 24 distraction tokens. As you may see in development process after the campaign, we decided to increase the number of tokens in that expansion. Legendary Hunt can be used in the standard game mode, and it has a new solo game challenge. After the game is set up, players choose or randomly draw a legendary monster. The card is played on the side of the game board and a miniature on the map on one appropriate location. First of all, the legendary monster blocks the location action of the location it occupies. Secondly, each time the last player has taken their turn, the legendary monster will move a number of times toward the location shown on the movement card. And the number of movement depends on the number of players, and each time the monster leaves the location, a distraction token is placed there. In Legendary Hunt, the gameplay is not changed dramatically, but players have a completely different goal of the game. The first player to win a fight with the legendary monster wins the game. So players race to train, learn its weaknesses, and fight the fearsome enemy. First of all, players may gather the distraction tokens, and each of them gives the player a special bonus, and player keeps them for use during the fight with the legendary monster. In order to get a distraction token, player has to end their phase 1 on a location with it, so it requires some planning. Also, the less trophies the player has, the stronger the legendary monster is. So players may decide only to focus on training, but hunting monsters and getting trophies of other witchers and level 5 ability trophies is very helpful in winning the game. So player may decide to fight the legendary monster at any time of the game, just as with regular monster. The monster has a unique ability and 4 special attacks, making each of the legendary monsters unique. Actually, the abilities of the monster may affect the way you train and build your deck from the very beginning of the game. During the fight, it uses a full deck of 20 special combat cards that are more deadly than the regular ones. It also has some permanent shields that decrease players' attacks. So those shields are restored in each fight turn, so winning the fight is a real challenge. At the same time, for each distraction token the player has gathered, legendary monster has 1 less card in their life pool when they start the fight. Also, each gained trophy decreases the permanent shield level by 1. So it is a real challenge, but with each turn player may come closer and closer to being ready for the final fight. And the first player that wins the fight against the legendary monster wins the game. So there's a level of tension as players explore the continent, train and fight monsters. So each fight with the legendary monster is a climactic moment that gets everybody at the table involved, and it's up to you to decide how are you going to prepare for that boss fight. You may choose from 7 very different legendary monsters, and the different movement cards and distraction tokens add another layer of replayability. The Legendary Hunt solo mode has you racing against time as you need to defeat the beast before it brings too much distraction to the continent. So the expansion is a treat for players that want to enhance the standard competitive experience as well as for solo players. I personally enjoy the tension a lot, and I enjoy the fact that the legendary monsters have a huge table presence here. Let me tell you more about Skellige Expansion. That expansion adds quite a few elements and expands the game in a few different ways. Following your suggestions, some changes have been made and components in that expansion actually grew. So before the game, the map extension is placed near the main board. Also, 6 harbor tokens are placed on the shore or on the 6 shore locations on the west. Randomly, 3 of those locations will have ships on them, ready to travel by the sea. The exploration and event decks are placed on the board. Those cards are used while the players travel on one of the islands. A Dagon miniature is placed on the bottom spot of the danger track. It will keep track of the danger level on the seas that affect travel to the islands, and eventually it will enter the game itself. Dagon has a special large card, 5 different ability cards that are rewards for players that manage to chase it away. Dagon is an ancient god and it may not be killed, but a successful fight brings that player gold and a unique ability. Let me get into more gameplay details. Firstly, there is the map extension that has 3 new locations on the map. 1 allows you to raise any attribute by 1 level. Second, gets you an additional 0 or 1 cost card, allowing for a faster deck expansion. And on the third one, you may get rid of 1 of your trophies and get 1 of a higher level, which is stronger. It helps you build your set of special abilities and exchange the ones that don't fully fit your strategy. Also on that location, if you don't have any trophies, you get a trophy of a level 1 monster without getting the point on the victory track. So each of the 3 locations has a special action different from any other on the continent. That way, traveling to those locations may change the way you play the game and train your Witcher. Each new location has also a location token, so the monsters and quests may be connected with them. But traveling by ship is not always safe, and the seas may be dangerous for travelers in many different ways. In order to travel by the sea, a player has to enter one of the 6 shore locations on the west, marked by a harbor token. Also, there has to be a ship in that location, and there are 3 ship miniatures used for the sea travels. When the player decides to leave the location by the ship, they place the Witcher on the miniature, they play a card to travel to an island and roll a dice. And that dice roll will determine if the trip is safe or dangerous, and the probability of the 2 result changes during the game as the Dagon moves up the track. And depending on the result, a different side, safe or dangerous, of the special exploration card is read to the player by their neighbor. They may face different obstacles and decisions. They may come across a storm and land on an undiscovered island. They may be thrown into some adventures with the islanders or deal with the Vodanoi, also called the fish people. They're a race that inhabits the underwater cities, and they are working to summon Dagon. There are 50 exploration cards, and each has 2 variants depending on the dice roll made by the traveling player, so 100 in total. There are also events that will branch out the stories and quests found on the exploration cards. So thematically, that expansion adds a lot of replayability. After reaching one of the islands, you may end your turn there, but you may continue your journey by sailing back to any of the harbor locations. So it also adds another decision-making layer, since the number of the ships is limited, and you may try to help yourself or make it a little bit harder for other players to reach them. Dagon is a creature unlike any other. It has a large card and can appear as a regular monster or have special attacks when playing with the Monster Trail expansion. And with every ship excursion, the danger on the seas may rise, and the Dagon is getting closer to coming out of his hiding. So when it reaches the top spot on the track, Dagon is summoned, and each following ship travel is treated as a dangerous one. Also, when Dagon is summoned, the player may decide to enter a ship and try to kill the monster. Well, actually, you cannot kill Dagon, but you may chase it away. If you lose the fight, you get the same result as in the regular monster fight, right? You get a 0 cost card, a special trail card for when you fight Dagon in the future, and draw 1 card less in the last step of your turn. If you manage to chase it away, you get gold, a 0 cost card, and a special bonus card. There are 5 cards with different bonus abilities, and you get 1 at random when you chase Dagon away. Then it's removed back to the bottom of the danger track and most likely will be summoned again. The more players are at the table, the more often Dagon will appear, but it all depends on how often you travel to the islands and how lucky or unlucky you are. So summing up, Skellige adds a new type of exploration cards. Those have a different theme, work differently, and happen during phase 1, not phase 2. It adds new locations and a new way to travel, and that adds decision making while you train your Witcher and hunt the monsters. Skellige can be combined with the standard or solo mode, with the monster trail, mages, and legendary hunt as well. So it's an expansion that is not too hard to implement, but adds a big level of depth and replayability. At the end, let me just remind you that there is an exclusive monster pack that you get only when you get the 3 expansions mentioned before. So Mages, Legendary Hunt, and Skellige. You get Koshchei that can be used only when you play with Mages. You get Keiran, another legendary monster, and a Siren, a unique monster that can only be reached by a ship. I hope that such an in-depth overview gives you enough information about all the expansions in the game. Please remember that we are working on putting together all the remaining rulebooks, and once they are ready you will get all the details missing from this video. Again, thank you a lot for your support, and we will see you in the comment section. Bye bye.